The bigger karmic hammer fell when he tried to flee prosecution. He thought his charisma and fear could manipulate law enforcement. But my team had been meticulous. We collected testimonies from terrified members, financial records, medical reports, and even video footage of forced labor and abuse. Each piece of evidence stacked higher and higher, creating a cage he couldn't charm his way out of. Pastor Gideon's downfall was inevitable, but what I didn't expect was the twist. The day we arrested him, the congregation gathered outside. They looked lost, broken, and some even angry at us, as if we were the villains. And when I escorted Gideon into the police van, he turned to me with that same smug smile. "You think this ends me? No, the faithful will rise. God's work cannot be undone." Pastor, maybe you're God, but the universe has other plans. Fast forward a few months, and Gideon was behind bars, awaiting trial. But prison. You might be wondering why Pastor Gideon Harlow is getting beaten in prison. Well, sit tight, because I'm going to tell you exactly how this so-called God fell from the heavens straight into a nightmare. I'm Detective James Carter, and this case began the day a girl ran straight into my precinct, terrified, bruised, and shaking. Her name was Emily, barely 17. Her story was chilling.
Detective, they're making me marry him. I can't do it. Please, someone has to stop him.
Mary, who? Emily's hands trembled as she whispered.
Pastor Gideon, they said it's God's will, but I'm not ready. I'm not his.
I listened, numb. Forced marriages, children given away like property, adults manipulated, all in the name of a divine plan. And that's when I got assigned to the case. I went to observe him in person, pretending to be a concerned citizen. The church was massive, almost intimidating. Marble floors, gilded walls, and a stage where Gideon stood like a monarch. The congregation hung on his every word, whispering prayers of devotion and loyalty. "You are blessed beyond measure, children, for you have given yourselves fully to me. Your wealth, your labor, your very lives. These are the offerings that will guarantee your eternal reward." I watched as people nodded fervently, some even tearing open envelopes to place their life savings into the collection plate. His charisma was terrifying, and yet I noticed the cracks, the tired eyes of young girls, the men's anxious stares, the pregnant pause when a follower questioned him under their breath. As my investigation progressed, I realized that the real horror was the emotional toll on his followers. Some had given up entire lives. Children were malnourished, husbands beaten for questioning their marriages, and wives, many of them teenagers, forced into pregnancy with older men under the guise of divine selection. This man needs to be stopped before more lives are ruined. The breakthrough came when I uncovered his hidden ledger of donations and work hours. Members were forced to work in fields owned by Gideon's ministries, often without pay, while their contributions to the church bankrolled his luxurious lifestyle. Mansion after mansion, imported cars, personal staff, yet his followers lived in squalor. I remember confronting him for the first time. "Pastor Gideon, I have evidence of child marriages, financial fraud, and medical negligence. People have died under your watch." "Detective, faith is a gift. Sacrifice is part of God's plan. I do not answer to you, for I answer to heaven." He really thinks he's untouchable. But even the untouchable fall. After that meeting, Gideon doubled down on his power. He mocked the investigation during sermons, calling the police servants of doubt. His followers cheered, throwing money at his feet as if he were a king. Reporters tried to question him outside the church, but he waved them off with that smug grin and a rehearsed line. "The world cannot touch the chosen of God." He grew bolder, almost taunting the universe, boasting that even storms stopped for his prayers, that sickness fled from his shadow. He truly believed himself invincible. But that's when the cracks began to show. Karma didn't stop at minor embarrassments. One day, his private chef poisoned his expensive dinner by accident, and he spent much of his sermon rushing to the toilet nonstop. Another time, he boasted about his luxury SUV on social media, only to have it towed for unpaid fines. He had thought his accountants cleared. He cried to his staff, demanding it back immediately, and they just shrugged. There was that one sermon when a bad electrician had miswired the altar microphone. Gideon stepped onto the platform, flung his arms out dramatically, and got shocked so hard his hair stood straight up, and he collapsed. The congregation gasped, some stifled laughs. One day, as he ordered his driver to speed through a busy intersection, he ignored a red light. A delivery truck, too close to brake, clipped the SUV. Gideon's precious vehicle rolled, damaging itself badly. He spent thousands repairing it, while muttering to himself about divine misfortune. I couldn't help but laugh silently in my car. His favorite cat, which he claimed was his holy animal, escaped the mansion during a luxury party, and the entire guest list watched him scramble through the yard trying to catch it, looking foolish. The bigger karmic hammer fell when he tried to flee prosecution. He thought his charisma and fear could manipulate law enforcement. But my team had been meticulous. We collected testimonies from terrified members, financial records, medical reports, and even video footage of forced labor and abuse. Each piece of evidence stacked higher and higher, creating a cage he couldn't charm his way out of. Pastor Gideon's downfall was inevitable, but what I didn't expect was the twist. The day we arrested him, the congregation gathered outside. They looked lost, broken, and some even angry at us, as if we were the villains. And when I escorted Gideon into the police van, he turned to me with that same smug smile. "You think this ends me? No, the faithful will rise. God's work cannot be undone." Pastor, maybe you're God, but the universe has other plans. Fast forward a few months, and Gideon was behind bars, awaiting trial. But prison was a different kind of justice. The inmates had a name for men like him: snakes. And snakes don't last long in the tank. Well, if it ain't the holy man himself, what's it like up there in your ivory tower, Pastor? Gideon tried to smile, tried to charm, tried to command respect. But the inmates didn't care. "You think your God can save you now? Huh? You telling us heaven's watching? Guess what? He ain't paying rent in here. I am a servant of the Lord. You have no right." "A servant of the Lord? More like a servant of your own ego, pal. Look at you. You thought you were untouchable." Finally, the universe has a voice loud enough to be heard inside these walls. One of them grabbed his luxury watch. "Nice watch, God. Bet you bought it with the sweat of little kids and scared women. Guess what? Ain't nobody fearing you in here." They hurled him onto a bunk. The so-called God of the church looked human for the first time. Pale, vulnerable, utterly powerless. But the poetic justice didn't stop at prison walls. I continued to gather stories from his former followers. Girls who had been forced into marriage, men who had been cheated out of their livelihood, families broken by his doctrines. Each account was another nail in the coffin of his reputation. Gideon built his empire on fear, lies, and obedience. Every lie is a debt. The universe collects eventually. Even in prison, Gideon tried to use charm and wit, but the universe and the inmates had no mercy. Every insult, every shove, every laugh from the surrounding prisoners chipped away at the monster he thought he was. And then came the icing on the cake. One inmate, a former member of his church, recorded a sermon on a smuggled phone and played it to the entire cell block. Gideon's own words were twisted back at him, reminding everyone exactly why they despised him.
This is the man who stole our lives, our families, our dignity. Look at him now, the mighty God, powerless.
The inmates went silent for a moment, then erupted. Gideon flailed, screamed, begged, but no one cared. For once, the world wasn't listening to him, it was listening to justice. And as I left the prison that day, I couldn't help but smirk. A man who claimed to be divine, living in gold and luxury, feared by everyone who dared cross him, finally realized the price of hubris. If there's one thing this case taught me, it's that no one is untouchable. Karma doesn't negotiate, it delivers. And sometimes, it delivers in the form of prison inmates with a sense of humor. Detective, you'll love this. Gideon tried to escape and slipped on a mop, landed face first in a trash bin. We're calling it divine slapstick. I laughed until my ribs hurt. The mighty pastor, the so-called God, humbled in every possible way. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. So folks, If you enjoyed watching a fake god brought down by karma, prison inmates, and a little poetic justice, go ahead, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Hey, what's this about? I was just reaching for my parking receipt.
Yeah, right. I know that you were probably reaching for a weapon. You think I don't know what your kind actually gets up to? Do you honestly think I would believe some stupid lie about your sick mama? Thugs like you think you can get away with anything. You just whine and lie and then make the world a worse place. But hey, what's this? Looks like you have some drugs on you.
To my horror, the officer dropped a bag of something next to my head. I'm not doing anything. I don't know what that is, but it isn't mine. But before I could finish, I felt a sharp pain in my side as his fist connected with my hip. I shouted, trying to turn, but he punched again, this time harder, and my legs buckled under the pressure.
Stop resisting,
he yelled, though I wasn't moving, nor was I even trying to fight back. All I could do was lay there, face down on the hard asphalt, too stunned to do anything other than put my arms around my head to try to protect myself. By the time he stopped hitting me, I could barely breathe, let alone stand. The next thing I remember, I was in the hospital, nurses and doctors surrounding me, their faces tight with worry and pity. My hip was shattered. They said it would take months to recover, that I might never walk the same again. They were right. The damage was done. My name is Harold Adams. I never thought I'd be telling a story like this. I was raised to respect authority, to believe that if you kept your head down, treated people right, you'd be okay. My mama used to say, "Son, just walk straight and mind your business." I did my best to live by that. I had a steady job, paid my bills, took care of my family. But sadly in this world, sometimes that's not enough. Over the years, I've had my share of run-ins with the police, just from walking down the street or driving through town. Some of those cops looked at me like I was guilty of something just for existing. I remember one time, I was pulled over on my way home from work, and the officer asked if I had done anything illegal. No reason, no explanation, just suspicion hanging in the air. "No, sir," I'd said, trying to keep my voice steady. He'd let me go, but I was left with a knot in my stomach and a reminder that I was never really safe. There were just too many racist people out there in the world that didn't see Harold. They saw a dangerous black man. There were times when I would grow extremely annoyed at that thought. But as the years went by, I realized that I couldn't change the mind of everyone in the world. All I could do was be a good person and just try to avoid such situations as much as possible. I felt powerless to do anything else. At least that's how I felt until my life changed dramatically. One late August night, when I was driving home, tired after visiting my mother in the hospital. She just had surgery, and all I wanted was to get home, take a shower, and pray she'd make a strong recovery. As I was merging onto the freeway, I saw flashing blue and red lights in my rearview mirror. I hadn't done anything wrong. I checked my speed, kept my hands at 10 and 2, stayed in my lane.
Pull over.
I heard a voice on a loudspeaker order me, so I did, heart thumping as I slowed to a stop on the shoulder. The officer stomped up to my window, flashlight glaring into my eyes.
License and registration.
He barked, barely looking at me as he snatched my ID from my hand. His name tag read, Donnelly. He was tall, muscular, with eyes that didn't just look at you, they cut through you. There was something about the way he stared that made my skin crawl. "Officer, is there something wrong?"
Yes, something is wrong. There was a burglary just down the road a short time ago, and the suspect was black. And now I see you driving here, so what are you doing out here?
Is that all the description that you have to go on? Yes, I'm black, but I didn't rob a store. I'm just driving home, sir. I was just visiting my mother in the hospital.
Is that so? I usually don't see people like you in this neighborhood. Seems rather suspicious. Maybe I should search your car and make sure you don't have any stolen items inside. You sure you aren't lying to me?
No, sir. It's the truth. I didn't rob anyone. I am just coming from the hospital.
You wouldn't be the first person to lie to me. Step out of the vehicle.
He looked me up and down. I felt like he had already decided that I wasn't trustworthy. I opened my door, confused and getting nervous now. It was at that moment that I did something stupid. I figured that I should reach into my pocket and pull out the slip that I had been given so I could park in the hospital parking garage. It showed when I left the hospital, and I knew that if he saw it, that he would believe me. But no. As soon as he saw me reaching for my pocket, he grabbed my arm, twisted it behind my back, and shoved me face first against my car. Hey, what's this about? I was just reaching for my parking receipt.
Yeah, right. I know that you were probably reaching for a weapon. You think I don't know what your kind actually gets up to? Do you honestly think I would believe some stupid lie about your sick mama? Thugs like you think you can get away with anything. You just whine and lie and then make the world a worse place. But hey, what's this? Looks like you have some drugs on you.
To my horror, the officer dropped a bag of something next to my head. I'm not doing anything. I don't know what that is, but it isn't mine. But before I could finish, I felt a sharp pain in my side as his fist connected with my hip. I shouted, trying to turn, but he punched again, this time harder, and my legs buckled under the pressure.
Stop resisting,
he yelled, though I wasn't moving, nor was I even trying to fight back. All I could do was lay there, face down on the hard asphalt, too stunned to do anything other than put my arms around my head to try to protect myself. By the time he stopped hitting me, I could barely breathe, let alone stand. The next thing I remember, I was in the hospital, nurses and doctors surrounding me, their faces tight with worry and pity. My hip was shattered. They said it would take months to recover, that I might never walk the same again. They were right. The damage was done. Once I was in the recovery ward, I was informed that the police would be coming to question me. As it turned out, Donnelly had planted drugs on me, and since it was my word against his, and he was a cop, the other police officers believed him. I was let off with a couple thousand hours of community service, even though I was innocent. And Donnelly was hailed as a hero for making yet another arrest and keeping the streets clean. He was well on his way to being promoted as a top cop for ridding the streets of dealers. After weeks of surgery and the start of what felt like endless hours of physical therapy, I finally started to make it to my sessions on my own, without having to rely on help from other people. I, of course, still had to use a walker, but I was beginning to feel independent again, which also meant that I would need to start my hours of community service. The physical therapists did their best, but every step was a reminder of what had happened. One day, I overheard a couple of other patients talking. I caught my breath when I heard the name Donnelly. You talking about Officer Donnelly?
Yeah, that's him. That man's ruined more than a few lives. Left my cousin with a busted jaw 2 months ago. Got off with barely a slap on the wrist. He gets away with everything.
My brother was just walking down the road and Donnelly pulled up, and after some heated words cracked him over the head with his nightstick. He got a severe concussion from it. The guy is a menace. How many people has he hurt?
Dozens over the years. People have tried to complain, but they never have proof, and then it's their word against his.
Yeah, and the police force won't do anything. You know how it is. No matter how racist or dangerous a cop is, they get to keep their job unless you come forth with concrete proof that they are a danger. Hearing that lit something inside me. For weeks, I'd buried the anger, tried to push past it, but it came back full force that day. I realized I couldn't let this go. I'd fought to stay on the straight and narrow all my life, but I couldn't live with the thought of him doing this to someone else. And to know that there were so many other people that he had hurt too. I needed to expose him. So I contacted the local news. They were sympathetic, horrified even, and after some back and forth, we devised a plan. Together, we would set up a sting operation to catch him in the act. The day we set it up was a tense one. We'd found someone willing to play the role of an innocent bystander who'd be pulled over by Donnelly. The cameras were in place, hidden in plain sight, and all we could do was wait. The actor that was to be the victim was set up in a van in a very prominent place on the side of the road along Donnelly's typical route. The actor, who was black, had a hidden body camera as well as recording equipment, so we would hear and see everything. Sure enough, Officer Donnelly drove up, flashing his lights at our setup driver.
After only a few minutes of Donnelly interrogating the driver, he pulled him out of the car, then began getting rough, pushing him against the car with that same look in his eyes I remembered. Suddenly, he punched the driver in the stomach, and when the man doubled over in pain, Donnelly reached into his back pocket and pulled out a Ziploc bag full of a white powder, which he dropped into the driver's car.
Isn't that interesting? Looks like you have cocaine on you. No wonder you were acting suspicious.
Just then, Donnelly's hand went to his baton, and he started to hit the driver with it while demanding that he stop resisting arrest. Seeing this, we stepped out from behind a parked van in an attempt to stop him from seriously hurting the man. "Donnelly, it's over. We've got it all on tape. We've been filming you since you walked up to the car." He froze, his eyes darting to me and then to the news crew behind me, panic flooding his face.
What? What is this? What are you talking about?
"You're done. We saw you hit him without just cause, and then we saw you plant drugs on him just like you did to me and probably countless other people too. All those people you hurt, all the lives you ruined. It's time you answered for it. We got all the evidence we will need to help those of us that you've wronged. The police department can't ignore the recordings that they captured here today." He looked around, saw the cameras, and grew terrified and bolted. He jumped in his cruiser and sped off. I almost laughed, knowing he couldn't outrun the truth, and that once the story was shown to the public, that he would no doubt be arrested by his fellow officers from the same police department. But then, before he had gotten very far, in his haste, he took a corner too hard. We heard the screech of tires, then a sickening crash as his car hit a concrete barrier. We of course called for paramedics. The last I saw of Officer Donnelly was him being wheeled out of the wreck, his legs mangled beyond repair, a look of shock and terror on his face. Once he was released from the hospital, he was charged with multiple counts of police brutality, lost his job, and was sent to prison. The news crew ran his story for weeks, which made sure that the jury that was assigned to his case were very familiar just how much of a monster he was. For years, he'd used his authority to ruin lives, but in the end, justice caught up to him. They say he'll never walk again, which is rather fitting since so many people that he wronged are now permanently crippled because of his rage and racism. I wasn't done though. I sued the police department, determined to hold them accountable. They tried to brush it under the rug, but with all the public attention along with the news crew's footage, they couldn't hide their culpability. They settled, hoping to save some face in the public's opinion. They ended up giving me quite a bit of money. At that moment, I made a decision I'd never expected. I went to law school. While there, I was given an option to visit the local prison where Donnelly was being held, and I enjoyed seeing him in a prison uniform. Not only that, but I met a few of the guards that watched him. One of them was a man that Donnelly had falsely accused of smuggling drugs, and after his conviction was overturned, he became a prison guard. He promised me that he routinely makes sure that Donnelly's cell is free of contraband. Judging by the black eye and bruises that Donnelly had on his face, I think the guard finds something in Donnelly's cell fairly often. Now, years later, I'm back in that courtroom, representing people who've been unfairly accused, standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. I'll never walk without this walker, but every time I limp up to the bench, I remember what I went through, what so many go through, and I know that this is what I was meant to do. I've become a voice for justice, a defender of those who need it most. I'm exactly where I am supposed to be, and so is Donnelly. Thanks for watching.
The funeral was arranged. Friends and family gathered in the quiet space, sharing memories of my father, offering condolences. I was grateful for the support. For the first time in weeks, I felt a moment of peace. However, that peace shattered when I saw him. Mr. Field stormed into the funeral home like a tornado, his face twisted in anger. The room fell silent as people turned to see who had entered.
You think you can just walk out on your job like that? This is exactly why you're a failure. You're irresponsible, unprofessional, and entitled.
Please, stop. This is my father's funeral. But he didn't care.
I don't care. You don't get to disrespect me and then play the victim. Do you think the world owes you something because your dad died? Grow up.
The priest tried to calm him down but was met with a slap from Gregory.
Just shut up and mind your damn business. I'm not here for you.
Mark, my boyfriend of 1 year, immediately intervened.
You need to leave now and stop being a nuisance. Who do you think you are, huh? You think you can tell me what to do? You're just as pathetic as she is. Get out before we make you regret showing up here.
And then, in an instant, everything turned violent. Gregory punched Mark, and my male friends immediately stepped in, all of them pouncing on Gregory. Gregory tried to fight back, but he was no match for the group. They pinned him to the ground, hitting him continuously until my uncle stepped in and pulled them away. For 2 years, working for Mr. Gregory Fields had been nothing short of a living nightmare. It didn't start that way. When I was first hired, he seemed professional, even kind. I remember the first day I met him. He seemed imposing, but with a smile that made me believe he was someone who could offer me a fresh start in a field I was eager to grow in. He welcomed me into the office with open arms, offered support, and was the picture of a caring boss. For the first few months, it felt like I was finally in the right place. But everything changed the day he asked me out. It wasn't that I was offended by the gesture. It was the way it felt, the pressure that came with it. I had only been there for a few months, and I had made it clear that I was here to work, not to date anyone, especially not someone in charge. I turned him down politely, but that was the moment I should have known better. From then on, everything shifted. At first, it was subtle. He started criticizing my work more harshly, nitpicking the smallest details. If I submitted a report on time, it wasn't thorough enough. If I went the extra mile and stayed late, it was because I wasn't capable of completing tasks efficiently. Every attempt to impress him only seemed to make things worse.
You're lucky you have this job. No one else would put up with mediocrity like this.
Those words hit harder than I expected. I wasn't perfect. Nobody is. But I knew my work was solid. Yet every day it felt like I was slowly being crushed under his gaze, his words sinking in deeper, eroding my self-confidence. I tried not to let it show. I kept my head down and pushed forward, hoping that if I worked hard enough, it would get better. But no matter how much I gave, it was never enough. The worst part was the way he made me feel small, not just in the office, but in my own skin. Every comment he made about my appearance or my personality felt like a calculated jab, designed to strip me of any sense of worth. It wasn't just professional anymore. It was personal, and it hurt more than I ever thought possible. Then, my world was thrown into chaos when my father fell ill. He had always been my rock, the one constant in my life, and to watch him slip away, bit by bit, tore me apart. I asked for time off to take care of him, just a week, but Mr. Fields' response was as cold and unfeeling as ever.
Do I look like a charity? This is a business, not your personal support system.
I was stunned, too shocked to even reply. But I had no choice. I couldn't afford to lose my job, not with the medical bills piling up and my father needing constant care. So I hired a caretaker to watch over him, someone I thought I could trust. But it wasn't enough. Slowly, I began to notice signs of neglect. My father was growing weaker, his room becoming messier, his medications being given late or missed altogether. It broke my heart to realize that the one thing I could control was slipping through my fingers. And then, 3 weeks later, my father died. The guilt hit me so hard. If only I had pushed harder for time off. If only I had been there for him. The thought of hiring someone to care for him felt like a betrayal, and the shame of it gnawed at my insides every day. But I had to keep going. The world didn't stop for me, and neither did my job. I needed 2 days off to arrange his funeral, to mourn. I couldn't do it alone. When I went to Gregory again, the response was exactly what I expected.
2 days? Didn't I just give you time for something recently?
That was for a doctor's appointment. This is my father's funeral. Please, just 2 days.
No, we have deadlines. Handle your personal drama on your own time.
I was filled with anger, frustration, and loss. But I didn't argue. I couldn't. I turned away and walked out of his office. I wasn't going to beg him for the time I deserved. I would bury my father, even if it cost me my job. The funeral was arranged. Friends and family gathered in the quiet space, sharing memories of my father, offering condolences. I was grateful for the support. For the first time in weeks, I felt a moment of peace. However, that peace shattered when I saw him. Mr. Field stormed into the funeral home like a tornado, his face twisted in anger. The room fell silent as people turned to see who had entered.
You think you can just walk out on your job like that? This is exactly why you're a failure. You're irresponsible, unprofessional, and entitled.
Please, stop. This is my father's funeral. But he didn't care.
I don't care. You don't get to disrespect me and then play the victim. Do you think the world owes you something because your dad died? Grow up.
The priest tried to calm him down but was met with a slap from Gregory.
Just shut up and mind your damn business. I'm not here for you.
Mark, my boyfriend of 1 year, immediately intervened.
You need to leave now and stop being a nuisance. Who do you think you are, huh? You think you can tell me what to do? You're just as pathetic as she is. Get out before we make you regret showing up here.
And then, in an instant, everything turned violent. Gregory punched Mark, and my male friends immediately stepped in, all of them pouncing on Gregory. Gregory tried to fight back, but he was no match for the group. They pinned him to the ground, hitting him continuously until my uncle stepped in and pulled them away, dragging Gregory out of the funeral home by his collar. He left the building with a bloodied lip and a bruised ego, humiliated in front of everyone. A few days later, I returned to work, knowing exactly what awaited me. On my desk was a neatly typed termination letter, signed by Gregory himself. I didn't even need to open it to know what it said. I had expected it. Without hesitation, I left the building. The next morning, my boss was at my door.
You think you've won, don't you? You think quitting makes you the bigger person? You're nothing. Just a spoiled little girl who can't handle real life. No wonder your father left you. He was probably tired of being related to a failure.
Don't you dare bring my father into this.
Why not? He raised a failure. You're just as useless as he probably was.
I wasn't going to let Gregory keep walking all over me anymore. I refused to be the same person I had been before. No, I was done. Get out of my house now or I'll call the cops. You're trespassing on my property. I'm done with you, Gregory. Leave before I make things worse for you. His bravado was immediately gone at the mention of the police. He turned and stormed out, muttering insults under his breath as I watched him go. Once he was gone, I laughed. He thought he had won, but I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I knew I had to act quickly. Gregory had crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let him get away with it any longer. I rushed to grab my laptop and logged into the company system. I didn't waste a second, pulling up all the files I needed. Emails, messages, financial reports, everything that would expose his twisted empire. It didn't take long to dig up what I needed. He had been running shady deals with offshore accounts, falsifying records, and forcing employees into doing things they weren't comfortable with. All of it was there. Once I had everything, I didn't hesitate. I called the police. I've got evidence of fraud, abuse, and more. You need to investigate Gregory Fields and his company. The cops invited me over, and I submitted the evidence I had. It wasn't until 2 days later before the cops informed me that they'd found Gregory guilty of all crimes, and even more. They were going to arrest him that day. I immediately called a friend who was quite popular in the media scene and asked her to spread the news. They all needed to be there to capture his defeat. I saw it on the news first, the headline being, Gregory Fields arrested for fraud and unlawful labor practices. I smiled. It was happening. I sat patiently, waiting for when they'd show him leaving his company while handcuffed. Within minutes, I was smiling and watching the footage as Gregory was let out, handcuffed. The reporters shouted questions at him, but he remained silent, his pride clearly wounded. It felt so good, watching him being dragged away, his reputation shattered in front of the world. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment he would finally face the consequences of everything he'd put me and so many others through. The story broke across every news channel. Social media lit up with people sharing their own experiences with Gregory Fields. The comments rolled in fast and furious. People who had been too afraid to speak up now had their voices heard. Stories flooded the internet. Employees he had harassed, customers he had scammed, small businesses he had ruined. They all came forward, sharing their encounters with the man who thought he was untouchable. By the end of the day, Gregory's name was a joke, a symbol of greed and cruelty. People posted memes, calling him everything from a fraudster to a criminal mastermind. I couldn't deny how excited seeing all of that made me feel. It was more than just a victory for me. It was for everyone he had ever hurt. It was for the silent voices who hadn't been able to stand up until now. Gregory Fields was found guilty of so many charges at the court hearing. I made sure I was there and that he saw me in the front seat. I could see how angry he was, but there was nothing he could do to me. His properties ended up getting seized and his company was shut down. The world saw him for who he really was. He was no longer the powerful man who had tormented me. He was a disgraced criminal, and now it was my turn to rise. Later, I found out that Gregory's company was dismantled, his empire destroyed. The police investigation uncovered the full extent of his crimes, from tax evasion to forced labor. His punishment was just perfect. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison, and that was just the beginning of his downfall. In the meantime, I had made my decision. I was going to make sure Gregory's name was erased from the world of business. I started my own company, a fashion design brand, which was something I'd always dreamed of doing. The support I received from people online was overwhelming. My brand grew fast, and as it flourished, I found myself thinking less about Gregory. He was a chapter in my life that was now closed. But a year later, I heard something I couldn't ignore. Gregory had been transferred from his previous prison after a series of violent attacks by other inmates. Within just a few months, 3 attempts to assault him had been made after the inmates learned about how he used to bully his employees. He was eventually moved to a different prison, where he got into a fight with some inmates and was beaten so severely that he lost one eye. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment below saying, "I subscribed." And we all will do our best to reply to your comment. Not as her daughter, but as a solution. At 15, she called me into the living room. A man in a suit sat on our torn couch, sipping whiskey like he owned the place. His eyes crawled over me, cold and hungry.
"This is Mr. Donahghue. He's helping us."
Helping how?
"Don't ask stupid questions. You'll be staying with him for a while. It's better than this dump."
She's pretty. Good manners too, I hope.
My heart froze. I looked at Mom, waiting for her to laugh, to say this was some sick joke. Instead, she shoved a backpack into my hands.
"Do what he says, and maybe he won't hurt you."
That was it. That was her goodbye. His mansion was beautiful, on the outside. Marble floors, chandeliers, fountains in the garden. But to me, it was a prison. He locked me in a room with no phone, no internet. My job was to clean, cook, and be pleasant company. Pleasant company meant his wandering hands brushing against me when he passed. It meant lingering stares when I bent to scrub the floor. It meant him cornering me in the kitchen late at night.
You should be grateful, girl. Without me, you'd be in the gutter. I give you a bed, food, clothes. All I ask is a little loyalty.
Loyalty. That was his word for slavery. I'd cry into my pillow, praying the lock would one day fail. My name is Alyssa, and if you're here expecting some sweet story about a troubled girl who found her way through love and patience, you're dead wrong. My story is about betrayal, cruelty, revenge, and survival. It all started the day my dad died. My dad wasn't perfect, but he was the glue that held our little family together. He worked long hours at the mechanic shop, always came home with grease-stained hands, and never let me go to bed hungry. He'd even braid my hair in the mornings before school when Mom was too tired. But when he got sick and died suddenly, Mom shattered. And instead of grieving, she reached for pills. Pills became powders. Powders became needles. And soon my mother was no longer Mom. She was a hollow-eyed stranger who would scream at me if I asked about dinner.
"Your father left us with nothing. Do you want me to suffer too? This is how I cope."
She used me as her maid. I scrubbed floors, washed her bloodied clothes after fights with boyfriends, and begged for coins to buy bread. Sometimes when I asked too much, she'd slap me across the face.
You're ungrateful. Do you know what I've sacrificed for you?
Sacrificed? She couldn't even remember my birthday. Her coping destroyed everything. Drugs were expensive and Mom was desperate. That's when the men started showing up. Different ones every week. Some were violent. Some were pathetic. But all of them looked at me in a way that made my skin crawl.
She's growing up fast, huh?
Mom would just laugh, not noticing or not caring how I froze, clutching my book bag tighter. I learned to lock my door at night, to make myself invisible. But you can't hide forever. By the time I was 14, Mom owed a lot of people money. Dealers, loan sharks, and God knows who else. I'll never forget one night when two men banged on the door, dragged her outside, and beat her in the street while I watched through the window. She came back bloody, swollen, and shaking.
They won't let me go unless I pay. I need more, always more.
That's when she started looking at me differently. Not as her daughter, but as a solution. At 15, she called me into the living room. A man in a suit sat on our torn couch, sipping whiskey like he owned the place. His eyes crawled over me, cold and hungry.
This is Mr. Donahghue. He's helping us.
Helping how?
Don't ask stupid questions. You'll be staying with him for a while. It's better than this dump.
She's pretty. Good manners too, I hope.
My heart froze. I looked at Mom, waiting for her to laugh, to say this was some sick joke. Instead, she shoved a backpack into my hands.
Do what he says, and maybe he won't hurt you.
That was it. That was her goodbye. His mansion was beautiful, on the outside. Marble floors, chandeliers, fountains in the garden. But to me, it was a prison. He locked me in a room with no phone, no internet. My job was to clean, cook, and be pleasant company. Pleasant company meant his wandering hands brushing against me when he passed. It meant lingering stares when I bent to scrub the floor. It meant him cornering me in the kitchen late at night.
You should be grateful, girl. Without me, you'd be in the gutter. I give you a bed, food, clothes. All I ask is a little loyalty.
Loyalty. That was his word for slavery. I'd cry into my pillow, praying the lock would one day fail. And then, one night, it did. He came home drunk and forgot to lock my door. My heart pounded as I slipped barefoot into the hallway, crept past the guards, and ran. The night air stung my face, but I didn't care. I was free. I didn't know where I was going, just that I had to keep moving. That's when I saw them. 5 figures under a flickering streetlight, leather jackets, tattoos, the smell of smoke. A gang. They turned when they heard me sobbing.
What's a kid like you doing out here at this hour?
I froze. My voice cracked. Please, don't hurt me.
We're not gonna hurt you. Who did this to you?
And for the first time, the dam broke. I told them everything. About Mom, about Donahghue, about being locked away. My words tumbled out, ugly and desperate. When I finished, there was silence. Then the leader spat on the ground.
Your mom sold you? That bastard used you like property? Nah, we can't let that slide.
They decided to get revenge. Donahghue thought his money made him invincible, but money can be stolen, and power can be burned. The hackers went to work first. They drained his accounts, leaving him scrambling to pay his staff. Then came the fires. His businesses mysteriously burned at night. Restaurants, warehouses, offices, ashes by morning. Without money or insurance to rebuild, his empire crumbled. Workers quit. Partners abandoned him. Customers vanished. But the gang wasn't done. One night, they caught him. They stripped him naked, filmed him begging, and hacked his account to post the video online, exposing him as a pedophile. It went viral. His name became mud. No one would hire him. No one would touch him. He wasn't just broke. He was branded forever. He fled the state, broke and desperate. Ended up working on a farm, picking fruit for pennies. Then there was Mom. The gang dragged her into a forest. They poured a strange liquid on her skin that attracted ants, then buried her up to her waist.
Please, please, I'll do anything.
Funny, isn't it? You begged your dealers. You begged your daughter to be your sacrifice. Now you beg us.
Ants swarmed her legs. She wailed, sobbed, clawed at the dirt. Finally, they yanked her out. But before they let her go, they forced her to transfer the little money she had into my phone.
If you ever think about running to the cops, remember this night. Next time, you don't walk away.
She believed them. Terrified, she fled the state. Rumor has it she changed her name and now works in a cemetery, digging graves for strangers. She became a ghost of herself, buried in guilt and fear. As for me, I didn't just survive, I lived. The gang became my family. They made sure I went back to school. They never involved me in crime, but they always had my back. Sometimes Marcus, the one I stayed with, would ride his bike up to my school and rev the engine. Everyone thought I was some kind of badass.
Kid, you got a whole army behind you. Don't forget that.
When I got my first job, they'd pull up to the site, all roaring bikes and leather. My coworkers would stare in awe. And yeah, I even bought my own bike. A shiny black one I ride to work every day. The wind in my hair feels like freedom. Freedom I thought I'd never have. Years later, I heard whispers. Donahghue, the once powerful man, still worked on that farm, hiding his face from cameras. My mom, still shoveling dirt at some cemetery, pretending to be someone else. Me? I stood tall in my office, degree framed on the wall, keys to my bike in my hand, gang family always a phone call away. So that's my story. At 15, my mom sold me to a rich man, but I was saved by a gang who taught me that family isn't blood, it's loyalty. And if you stuck with me this long, don't forget to like, subscribe, and maybe buy a bike. Because you never know when you'll need a family that rides together.
I told you that you couldn't have today off. You went over my head and got me in trouble with human resources. Did you honestly think that I would just let that go by and not do anything? Well, now I'm here to show you just how badly you messed up. I tried to corral him and get him to leave the church. However, he dodged me and made a beeline for the casket. I was petrified. I had no idea what he was going to do, and when he got up to the casket and tipped it over. Not only was I mortified, but my whole family was struck with this dismay at his behavior. With my dead grandmother lying on the ground, he then ran over to the priest that was officiating the ceremony, and he punched him as hard as he could in the face. Instantly, the priest was knocked unconscious and fell to the ground. But George still wasn't done. Oh no. As if that wasn't bad enough, he then went and grabbed for some of the candles that were on the altar and attempted to use them to set the church on fire. To say that he was out of control would have been an understatement. I want you to imagine someone so beyond insane that they would go on a rampage at a funeral. Imagine that person isn't some stranger, but someone that you know really well too. Would such a story pique your interest? Well, if so, then stick around and let me tell you about the worst boss in history. Hi, my name is Ken, to tell you about George, my boss. I wish I could say that George wasn't always a crazy, but from the moment I met him, always got the little unhinged. So I started working for Megacorp about 10 years ago. At that time, it seemed like a very good place to work, although I very quickly realized that my new boss, George, was very, very unusual. For starters, he would sit by the punch clock and would check every single person as they punched for the day. If you were even 1 minute late, he would scream at you until his face would go beet red. There were many days where he would scream so much that he would lose his voice. Ken, you are late. What do you have to say for yourself? I'm very sorry, sir. The traffic this morning was extremely thick and unusual. There were a few accidents on the freeway. I do not care one little bit. You should have accounted for that. I am going to dock your pay an hour for this. You can't be serious. I'm only 5 minutes late. You can't deduct a whole hour from my paycheck for that. Not only can I, but that is exactly what I'm going to do. And if you don't like it, then you can find a job somewhere else. Now that alone would be enough to piss off anyone, and those people would also certainly looking for other jobs elsewhere. As was working under those conditions is unreasonable. However, I could not find another job at that time. I had just recently moved to the city, and I was very tight for cash. Because of that, I could not afford to have any weeks where I did not get paid. And so I put up with it, although I wish that alone was the only thing that George ever did. That was crazy. You see, George had this very weird thing about people's food in the company fridge. It wasn't that he had any food allergies. Something like that I could at least understand.
No, he just pretty much took it upon himself to clean out the fridge of all the food that he did not like. Because he was a picky eater, most of the food in the fridge belonged to him. Every few months, he would randomly throw everything out. Not just old food, but often people's lunches for that very day. Many of us would work until noon, only to find our lunches in the garbage. If anyone dared confront George about it, let's just say they instantly regretted it. Where is my sandwich? I had left it along with a pop in the fridge.
Ooh, was that yours? Well, it smelled like death. How on earth can you eat such filthy garbage? But then again, looking at you, I guess I can understand how you would eat such crap. Do us all a favor and never bring that kind of bullcrap in here ever again.
I paid $15 for that sandwich. You had no right to throw that away. You owe me money for it.
Is that so? Well, I for one don't think I owe you a damn dime. And if you're going to talk to me like that, I'll make you eat those words.
Sadly, Mark wouldn't let it go, which led to them arguing back and forth. Their voices grew louder and louder until George got so upset that he shoved Mark into the refrigerator. That seemed to end the fight, but once Mark was on the ground, George started kicking him. It took 4 of us to pull him off of Mark, who was cowering on the floor, unsure of what to do. As crazy as that was, George did not get fired from the incident. No, instead, he was given a strong warning and was given a 2-week suspension. Meanwhile, poor Mark ended up having to go to the hospital and was treated for having a broken rib. After that, Mark never said anything to George ever again. None of us did. You might be wondering, how is it that George is able to get away with acting like this? And honestly, I wonder the same thing. Because that wasn't even the worst of it. No, not even by a long shot. However, the good news is, that's the absolute worst thing that George ever did while I worked for the company finally opened up their eyes and made them fire him. Of course, they kind of had to, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So one day while I was at work, I got a very dreaded phone call. My mother called to tell me that my grandmother had passed away. She had been sick for some time, so it wasn't a complete surprise, but still was not very good news. With tears in my eyes, I went and told George that I was going to need a few days off for the funeral. The look on his face told me that he was not pleased with this news. After all, we had just gotten a very important meeting to prepare for, and he did not want to give me any time off. In fact, at first, he refused to give the days off, and that even threatened to hit me over the head with a computer monitor if I wasn't at work on those days. Annoyed and extremely angry with him, I went to Human Resources and told them that I needed those days off and that he was refusing to give them to me. Since I had proof that what I need those days off for was true, Human Resources okayed my time off. I knew there was going to be fallout from doing this, but I had no choice. I wasn't going to miss out on my grandmother's funeral just because George felt like he needed me to be at work. And so the next day I got dressed, I went to my grandmother's funeral. It was a very somber affair, at least it was until George showed up. I still do not understand how he figured out where the funeral would be held, nor what he thought he would do once he was there. I mean, even if he begged me to come to work, there was no way that I was going to leave the funeral. However, he did not ask me to leave. To be honest, I don't think anybody could have possibly guessed what he was about to do next.
Ken! Where are you, you bastard? I am going to rip your arms off.
George? What are you doing here? For crying out loud, this is my grandmother's funeral. What the hell is wrong with you? Get out of here!
I told you that you couldn't have today off. You went over my head and got me in trouble with Human Resources. Did you honestly think that I would just let that go by and not do anything? Well, now I'm here to show you just how badly you messed up.
I tried to corral him and get him to leave the church. However, he dodged me and made a beeline for the casket. I was petrified. I had no idea what he was going to do, and when he got up to the casket and tipped it over. Not only was I mortified, but my whole family was struck with this dismay at his behavior. With my dead grandmother lying on the ground, he then ran over to the priest that was officiating the ceremony, and he punched him as hard as he could in the face. Instantly, the priest was knocked unconscious and fell to the ground. But George still wasn't done. Oh no. As if that wasn't bad enough, he then went and grabbed for some of the candles that were on the altar and attempted to use them to set the church on fire. To say that he was out of control would have been an understatement. As soon as my family saw what he was trying to do, they snapped out of it, and everybody collectively charged at him. My father tackled him to the ground, and while he was on the ground, I began to punch him in the face until he was also unconscious. Meanwhile, my mother and sister were calling the police and insisting that they arrive immediately. Minutes later, the police arrived and they began to take everybody's statements. None of them believed our stories at first, but as more and more people told them the exact same story, they started to come around. Everybody was shocked. I mean, how often do you ever hear about somebody going crazy and attacking a funeral like that? The next day, I called my work and told them what George had done. Human Resources promised me that George would be fired, but honestly, that wasn't even remotely enough. This wasn't the first time that George had gone off and done something crazy. It was definitely the worst thing he had ever done, but the company had known that he had done other things to other people over the years, and this was the last straw. I ended up hiring a lawyer and suing the company for negligence. They had known that George was unstable, and they had had many chances to let him go, and didn't. To my surprise, more than a few fellow employees joined in and ended up being a class action lawsuit against the company. During the trial, myself and all my fellow employees told our stories about George. The jury was absolutely floored when they heard the story of Mark and what had happened to him, but when I told my story, all of their mouths were hanging wide open in shock. They could not believe that an adult would do something so incredibly stupid, so incredibly insane, so incredibly unhinged. When it came time for the jury to deliberate, they took not more than half an hour, and when they came back in, they awarded all of us the class action lawsuit, $2 million each. And since there was over 20 of us involved, the company ended up having to fork out quite a large sum of money. However, the judge decided that that was simply not enough, and he fined the company an additional $40 million. That would be paid to all of us involved. George was sentenced to 3 years behind bars for his actions. As soon as George heard the verdict, he went ballistic. His face was beat red, and he tried to run across the courtroom to attack me, but the courtroom guards tased him before he could reach me. He fell to the ground as he was electrocuted. I'll be honest, in pain that almost felt like things had been balanced. Of course, Megacorp fired him as well. They kind of had to in order to save some face, as the class action lawsuit had gotten quite a bit of press, and the public was threatening to boycott the company if they didn't. And although it was never said, me and all those involved in the lawsuit quit. We did have $4 million each, but after being involved in suing the company, we knew that they would fire us if we didn't quit. Some of us retired as they were a bit older. A few ended up starting companies of their own. As for me, I did something that I had only ever dreamed about. I opened up a combination, bookshop, and bistro. I did take a large amount of the money that I was awarded, and I invested it. That way, I never had to count on the store to make money. And there you have it. As for George, I later heard that after 3 years, when he got out, he realized his wife had sold all his properties and fled to a different country, leaving him penniless. It was hard for him to find a job as a convict, so he ended up working as a garbage collector. It's so sad and depressing. George was easily the worst boss I ever had, but I'm very proud to say that I will never have another boss again. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.